Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 675, and today's date is May 23rd, 2015, and the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand that the powers that be, the central bank system, they would love to get rid of cash. And we see there's some calls for getting rid of cash coming from an economist from Citigroup. We see JP Morgan Chase calling for the end of cash, where they don't want people to put cash in their safety deposit box. And we understand that this is all done on purpose because they're trying to keep the banks safe from bank runs. And we could see right now from Armstrong Economics, he's reporting that there is a secret meeting in London where Kenneth Rogoff of Harvard University and Willem Butler, the chief economist at Citigroup, will address these central banks and advocate the elimination of all cash. And we could see that they're moving this forward, and they're going to do the best they possibly can to remove all cash. And this will definitely stop the run on banks. It will also allow governments to track every single purchase. We understand that the dollar is collapsing. Saudi Arabia kind of acknowledges that, yes, the petrodollar is ending. They're saying that the petrodollar is going to end by 2032. They've announced plans to invest by 2032 a total of $109 billion in the solar industry and become an exporter of electricity. And of course, they're giving us the date of 2032, and we know that this is going to happen much sooner because every time they tell us something, it's normally the opposite. When they bring it out for a very long period of time, something is going to happen much, much sooner. And we can see all the signs that are pointing towards the end of the dollar. We can see the central bankers making preparations. We see the U.S. government making preparations. We see the Canadian government, the European governments, the Australian government, all making preparations for this collapse scenario. This is why we see these false flag events. This is why we see everyone giving up their rights, because the government is telling them, we need to keep you safe. We need more troops on the ground. We need to spy on you. We need to make sure that you are safe. This is the reasons we need to do this. They're doing this on purpose because they need to understand who is a threat to their authority. We see the U.S. Senate has passed the fast track for the TPP. The bill will now head to the House of Representatives for a vote early next month. If this is passed, it will give the power to Obama to negotiate trade pacts with other countries. And he really doesn't have to inform Congress and get their approval. This is all being done to help the central bank, the corporate powers, and it is not being done to help the people. This is why it was kept a secret from the people. This is why they say, listen, no cameras, no notes, you can't discuss it, and if you do and you leak it, you can go to jail. Anything that is a secret like this means that they're hiding something, even though they're trying to convince us that no, it's really for the people. If it's truly for the people and this is democracy, then the people should be able to read it, understand it, and know what's in it. Period. That's it. Because again, we the people. It's not we the government. We see for the second time, U.S. senators rejected a bill to abolish the National Security Agency's bulk collection of American phone records. The vote came in at 57-42, and the U.S. Freedom Act failed on Friday. Well, the U.S. Freedom Act, or the USA Freedom Act, doesn't really stop the bulk collection. Really, all it does is it transfers it to corporations, and they will be collecting all this data and handing it over to the government. And this doesn't mean that the government is going to stop spying whatsoever. And it's a good thing the USA Freedom Act was turned down, because the Patriot Act expires June 1st. And it would be a fantastic thing if it does expire, because it is in complete violation with the Fourth Amendment. And we could see that the U.S. government officials, if you like to call them that, they really don't care that they're violating the rights of the people. They need to let this go and expire. But they're doing whatever they possibly can by pushing the USA Freedom Act. And again, any bill that says Freedom Act, Affordable Care Act, Patriot Act, it is always the opposite. And all they're doing is switching everything to the corporations. Well, seems like a fascistic society to me. U.S. government, corporations melding into one. The government can say we're not spying on the people because the corporations are keeping all the data and just handing it over to us. Very convenient. We see the Pentagon is getting prepared for a missile attack from North Korea and Iran, which actually what they're really doing is they're setting up and preparing for what is going to happen coming very soon, which is war. And they're really preparing for Russia, China, the more advanced actors. The U.S. Department of Defense says Alaska is its preferred location to deploy a new long-range must-have radar to enable missile defense systems to better intercept potential enemy threats such as Iran and North Korea. Well, the missile shield in Eastern Europe is really for Russia. This early detection radar system is really for China and Russia. They're saying the new LRDR will serve as a mid-course sensor to improve target discrimination capability for our ballistic missile defense systems, to better address potential countermeasures and increase the capacity of ground-based mid-course defense. What's happening here is they're putting everything into place to prepare for this upcoming war. They're maneuvering military assets into the Eastern Europe area. NATO has increased their troops. The Pacific is getting more military assets. There are more bases popping up surrounding China. 60% of the fleet will be heading toward the Pacific. They want to bring more advanced weapons into Japan. We see the Middle East is basically now under full-blown war in Yemen. It's spreading to Libya because the people are taking back their countries, because they don't want the puppet governments in their countries. And we can see that the people are making gains in this area. Even in Ukraine, they're having problems there. This is why they had to bring in U.S. trainers to train the military in Ukraine, because the Ukrainian people their hearts are not into this. They're fighting their own people. And we can see that Poroshenko is not following along. He's not sticking to the Minsk II agreement. Even the OSCE is out there saying that they have spotted 5 main battle tanks, T-64s, in the government-controlled areas of eastern Ukraine. And they're saying this completely violates the Minsk Accord. We see they're continually firing on the airport in Donetsk. And every time they fire, the people in the southeastern region, they're recording it. They're saying 27 times it was violated. But there's no penalty for Kiev. There's only a penalty for the southeastern people or Russia. So how is this fair? It isn't. It's one-sided. And we could see right now that the U.S. and other nations are in Ukraine training, preparing, getting ready for a major offensive in the southeastern area. We see out in Yemen, Iran tried to bring in their Red Crescent plane carrying about 20 tons of food to Yemen, and they were denied in Djibouti. They would not let them land. And they're saying that this is where the UN relief hub is. We have permission from the UN, and they will not let the plane land, so it turned around and went back to Iran. The ship they were bringing in that they wanted to dock in Yemen was diverted to Djibouti. It seems that the ship is there now. UN is inspecting it, Red Cross is inspecting it, and then they will go ahead and hopefully give the humanitarian aid to the people of Yemen. We see that there's going to be talks, a UN-backed talks with the Yemeni people and the president, but Hadi will not attend the UN-backed peace talks on Yemen. Very interesting. You have to remember the people threw him out of the country and said, we do not want you here. We want our country back. And of course now, since he was a puppet ruler of the United States is using Saudi Arabia as a proxy army to put him back in power. In Ukraine, they were behind the people to remove the elected president, Yanukovych, and put in a puppet government. So we could see, if the U.S. doesn't have control of the country and they want a puppet government, they're behind the people. If they already have a puppet government in there and the people decide to kick them out, they're no longer behind the people. They're behind the puppet government, and the people now are terrorists. This is how it works. We see the UN is saying the situation in Libya is getting worse. It is a serious threat. And the Islamic State is making incredible moves in Libya. And we're going to have to react very quickly to the situation, or the whole country will just deteriorate. And this is why they're getting prepared to go into Libya very, very soon. We see the U.S. may be sending target spotters into Iraq. Now, I know they're saying Iraq, but guess what? They will be sending target spotters into Iraq and Syria. But you know what? They're already there. So that means we're going to have boots on the ground, just like we had these special operations in Syria where there were boots on the ground. So little by little, they're getting everyone used to having troops on the ground. And right now, they need them in Syria because they need to point out where the Syrian army is and bring the bombing in and have exact hits. This is not about not hitting the civilians. This is going after the Syrian army. But we know that already there are military on the ground. They're not advisors. And basically, we'll see more and more troops enter this area. Once they create a safe haven in Syria, we will see many troops on the ground in this area. We see that the United States, Israel, and other nations who use the Islamic State, who created the Islamic State as their proxy army to go into Syria, are getting nervous about the alternative media, the new media, and everyone that's coming out saying that, hey, this Islamic State, they're part of Western intelligence, they're part of Mossad, they're part of the UK coalition forces, and they're just a proxy army. Because what's happening is, the Islamic State came out in their magazine. They had an article entitled Conspiracy Theory. The article implies that the group's fighters have become delusional because of what it claims to be conspiracy theories about the Islamic State being a puppet for the Western intelligence. They're saying their recruitment is not going as planned and there's not enough people coming into the Islamic State. No, what's really happening is that people are starting to wise up, understand that this is a proxy army. So they're putting out that all these people who are saying this are conspiracy theorists, and it's baloney. It's fake. And what's very interesting, it implicates a myriad of parties, some of which are at odds in the conspiracy, including Qatar, Turkey, US, Iran, Iraq. They don't mention Israel at all, because Israel is behind this. They fund. They make sure that they have the troops going in. They help them if they're injured in Israeli hospitals. And it's just very strange how they don't mention the one country. And we know that this is a proxy army. And they're trying to throw everyone off with this propaganda that the alternative media, the new media, they're conspiracy theorists. And you shouldn't listen to them. We see the Islamic State. They're saying that they could have a nuclear bomb in less than 12 months. What does this tell us? This tells us that the United States, Israel, UK, and other nations are getting ready to launch an event to convince everyone it is time to go after the Islamic State. They're using the propaganda right now that Assad is using chemical weapons. He's using barrel bombs, getting the UN involved. They're building up the propaganda. This is how it starts. They build up the propaganda. They reopen the cases. They start making false accusations. They show the effect of the barrel bombs. They show the effect of the chlorine weapons, but they never prove who's actually doing it. All they're showing you is the after effect. This doesn't show you who did it. This just shows you what happened. And we know for a fact the proxy army has a chlorine factory. They've been using chlorine weapons. And we know, going back to 2013 and before that, it was the Free Syrian Army that used sarin gas in the country of Syria. It wasn't Assad. Why in the world? What would be his motive to use chemicals on his own people? Think about this for a second. What would he get out of it? Nothing. What would the US, Israel, UK get out of it if they had the Islamic State use chlorine weapons and blame it on Assad? Ah, that makes sense. We can understand that. And the Islamic State is saying that they're going to buy their bomb in Pakistan. And they're going to transport it through Libya into Nigeria. Very interesting. Those areas where they need to get back into. And I'm talking about the United States government, Israel, UK, or places they want to get into, which is Nigeria. And then they're going to transfer that over to the West and use it. And we can see they're getting ready. They're getting prepared. They're using the propaganda. And we know all of this is going to be an inside job. We know they already have operatives standing by, waiting for the green light to go. They have the authorization war pending in Congress. They're making the case that they're bringing in spotters into Iraq and Syria. We already have war in Yemen. And the United States is orchestrating the whole thing. They're already making the case to go back into Libya, then to Lebanon. They are getting ready. They're getting prepared to push this to the next step. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.